Coffeezilla, the mic is yours, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I just wanted to quickly ask, so there's this big question about this $8 billion that went into some kind of a stub account. If I just want to get some clarification on this, from my understanding, what you're basically claiming is that back when FTX didn't have banking, you'd use Silvergate to have people to wire money to Alameda Research and then credit them on the FTX side, but you didn't actually account for that money going back to them. So essentially you had like $8 billion come into FTX you didn't have on the books, technically. I mean, can you explain more how that worked? Because it seems like such a key part of this whole thing. And so far we've gotten like very vague things about stub accounts. Just try to be as specific as you can on how that actually happened.
And again, some of these are things I'm trying to piece together that I don't have the full answer to, but I think that part of it was, I believe that there was, correct FTX accounting, in terms of, the audited financials, but that at least I can say that when you sort of pulled up, on a dashboard, what the accounts look like, it would not have, it wouldn't have displayed, those transfers, and it wouldn't have displayed the balances related to those, which meant that it was, that the sort of what you would naively see as the relevant, it's the relevant sort of position size was quite a bit smaller than what the full position size was.
Specifically, you're talking about the funds that went into Alameda that was credited to on the customer side on FTX.
Yeah,
you're saying that basically when you looked at your dashboard, Alameda was using those funds to trade perhaps, but that ultimately you couldn't see that on the Alameda side because there was some kind of an accounting problem where there was a mix up with where it was credited. Is that the story?
Yeah, it's something roughly like that, or at the very least that the common displays of it did not include that piece of the accounting.
A real quick second follow-up. So I've talked to a few Alameda insiders and I've kind of run them by your story of things. I think you probably are aware. I'm pretty skeptical. And one of them, when I told them like sort of like, could it be that Sam wouldn't know about this? Somebody who worked with you. And they actually they laughed and they said, there's no way he's claiming to be stupid now when he was like this genius wonder kid. And so my sense of things is, how do you explain this? How do you explain the fact that some of the people who worked with you for years, your employees have come out and said, there's no way he didn't know about these backdoors. There's no way he didn't know what Caroline was doing when you guys were very close. The offices were right next to each other. I mean, how do you expect us to believe this story you're spinning?
I mean, I don't know what to say. Like, I had a lot going on, and I was spread thin. I was a bit less grounded than I had been before, and I lost track of a lot of important things. And I think that those
hang on 1 second. I think spread thin is one thing, right? Like, I think, things can get out of hand, but we're talking about a fundamental understanding of whether Alameda was commingling funds with FTX. I mean, I saw your Stephanopoulos and Sorkin interview, and you're pretty categorical that you had no idea that you were mingling funds. So that's what I'm asking about. Not like, did you know exactly what was happening on November 7th or 8th? I mean, I can understand sort of things getting out of control, but we're talking about the most fundamental grasp on how your business worked. You're telling us you had no idea.
I was not aware of a lot of what was going on. I was vaguely aware that some of these systems existed. I had no details of them, and I was not spending much time and on looking at position risk management. It was a big mistake.
I mean, we're right, Sam. I've just got guys. I've just got a DM. Sam has to leave. So guys,
Mark? Can I
guys? All right, guys. I just got to end it, guys. So because Sam has been DMing me nonstop about having to leave, and I don't want to just drop out for the last 10 minutes, saying I have to leave. So Sam, the last question I wanna end it with is there's two camps right now. One camp is looking at this and saying, Sam. All right. So guys. So on one side, the audience, I'm looking at the comments, is like, hey, Sam is at least speaking despite lawyers telling him not to, and looking at this in a very positive light. On the other side, people are saying your answers are very calculated. you're dodging any tricky questions. And, this is all part of a plan to paint yourself in a better light. And I do have to admit, there are some answers where they're very, very calculated and you try to dodge them in one way or another. So to conclude it from my end, what's next? What's next for you in the next few weeks? What can we expect? And what can FTX customers expect? Because you did say that FTX US, they should be made whole. FTX International, I think 30 cents on the dollar. What can the people that were hurt by this, there's some comments about people, kind of hurts me to say this, but, talking about ending their life. And we've had some of these people on stage. What can they expect over the next few weeks and months? And that question is for Sam, just for all other panelists, please. Go ahead, Sam.
I mean, look, I'm incredibly sorry about what happened, and I know that doesn't change anything. I'm gonna do what I can, even if that's not much. But at the end of the day, hopefully, hopefully there will be pathways that will be able to get more funds back for users. Hopefully there will be pathways that open up withdrawals where they can be, and that maximize the value ultimately that users can get. But in the end, that's a lot of that's not going to be up to me. I'm just going to try and be helpful where I can there. But I'm sorry.
Sam, you keep saying you can do what you can. What you're going to do as much as you can. You said it when the liquidator, when you went into chapter 11. I'm trying to understand in your head, what you think you can do in your current position, given the fact that the liquidators on both sides, well, the liquidators on the US side have said that you're no longer involved and that you no longer speak on behalf of the company. And I genuinely believe that you really want to help. I'm just trying to understand in your head, when you talk about doing whatever you can and trying to do it, what do you think is in your hands?
I am sorry, I'm very late for my next call, so I do have to hop off now. But all I can do is I can be helpful to all the teams who want me to globally, and I'm going to continue to do that if and when I'm asked, and look for other ways over time that I can hopefully help contribute. But yeah, there's a limit to how much different groups are going to want me to, and I understand that.
Mario, can we keep the space open after Sam drops?
Yeah, we will. So after just for everyone, hold on. Yeah, hold on. Just want to say, because I know, Sam, you're just about to jump off. He just jumped off. So we do have insiders with important. We do have insiders with bombshell news. They've been investigating the matter for months. I think about 9 months, and they have a lot of findings. And they haven't mentioned earlier. They're coming on stage now. We're about to bring them up. So Romy will send you their details if you can invite them up. They will be sharing details that nobody knows yet. So that's something I've been talking to them for a long time, and they finally agreed to come on stage and share it. So they're about to come on stage. But yeah, Alex, you were saying?
I mean, I just wanted to say, it was a bit frustrating, to be honest, because I think Sam was running circles, frankly, around a lot of people on stage, and we should have been delving deeper. Two things in specific that he's doing, and I think everyone in the crowd needs to be aware of this, not just for this space, but for future media appearances. The first thing he's doing is he's basically taking advantage of all these complicated side narratives that don't matter. The only thing that matters was that he basically went and he misappropriated customer funds and basically took those funds and lent it to a hedge fund that he fully owned, and then used FTT to back it up. And anytime he tries to get away from that, it's really important in these interviews that people dive deep, and we need people with domain knowledge on how exchanges work and how, frankly, finance works to keep digging on that, because we let him slither out of that way too much.
And any particular points, Alex, if you want to comment on particular points that were mentioned.
I highly agree with Alex. The way it was managed when trying to go into deeper questions.
Hold on, guys.
But yes, go on.
Guys, Alex, do you want to continue just any specific points? And I'll get you to speak, Chairman, right after, while we'll bring up the two special guests. Any specific points you want to mention for anyone listening? Specific lies that you want to address?
Yeah, so I mean, I pinned this tweet by Jesse, who obviously runs Kraken, and I think would have been a great person to keep drilling on that. But basically, when he actually started talking about how the margin trading system works at FTX, that just wasn't correct. He was basically saying that anyone could come in. I'm going to read Jesse's point because it's, I think, really valid, and it was literally
please do.
So for everyone, please pin the top tweet and like and retweet that to get more visibility. But basically, he said that, okay, how the exchange worked was that it was a net account equity model. model. So people could borrow against client funds, right? And then he would print FTT, which is a vapor token, against it. Okay. And then he said, if the quote Sam said was, if you add it all up and you counted the negative balances as 100% recoverable, then we were fully solvent. That makes no sense. You can't just go borrow like 10,000 worth of Bitcoin and then print FTT against that to collateralize it and then say that you're fully solvent. That is fraud. And like that was like the problem that like he keeps slithering away from, in my opinion. And like frankly, that's the only thing that matters. Like, yes, all these side things that he's doing with regulators or all these other aspects are problematic, but that is where the fraud lies.
Well, I mean, I think
Alex
he
is
admitted it when
absolutely
I
right.
asked
I just
him.
want to say real quick, I don't know who said like, oh, I believe you have like good intentions here. SBF has only one intention, which is to save himself from jail. Let's all keep an eye on that, because if you want to read into his statements, everything is said with the idea that he's trying to paint a narrative of himself, that he made an embarrassing mistake, that although he's this genius who went to these top tier Ivy League schools, worked on Jane Street, wooed everybody from BlackRock to Sequoia, all of a sudden he's an idiot the second he's committed fraud, right? We're supposed to believe he didn't know what was going on the company he started and ran for years. We're supposed to believe he didn't know what was going on right across the street. I mean, how stupid do we have to believe a narrative like that? It's completely insane. But people are like kissing his ass saying, oh, I believe you're doing the right thing. No, he's done enough. He's helped enough. He needs to take a sideline. He needs to go to jail, and people need to get whatever pennies they're going to get back from this whole thing. He's lied from the very beginning. I'm like shocked by the credulity people have in relation to this guy. They just like suck up whatever he's saying. Nearly everything out of this guy's mouth is a lie, except where it lines up with him not going to jail, and then he might tell the truth. But every single thing he says is with the aim of not going to jail, and everyone needs to remember that.
I don't know if you were there in the beginning.
I would like to add something to that, if I may. I would like to add that I'm disappointed how this whole thing was set up, because my first question and how throwing everyone else under the bus.
Sorry. Just go back. You dropped out for like 4 or 5 seconds. Can you go back 4 or 5 seconds? What you're saying?
Yeah. So I'm disappointed how this whole thing was running, because my first question went right to the meat of it, where he is basically saying he had no idea what happened with customer funds, and he's throwing Caroline under the bus and his co-partners under the bus. And I was moved down and removed as a speaker, and there was such a crucial question. And then Mario, I sent you a couple of important questions that you said you would ask, and you never did. And then you said, when you are done with your questions, we get to ask him questions. But at the end, you said there's only 5 to 10 minutes left. It's really not nice how this whole thing was managed, because there were so many important questions that were left unanswered. And I'm really
Bro, I do, Kim. I've got. You know how many people telling me on the panel? I've got more important questions that are unanswered. I don't have 5 hours to ask all the questions. I think we did a better job. If you go back to New York Times, if you go back to Good Morning America, compare these questions to the questions they asked and the fluff pieces they had. So we tried our best, considering the amount of speakers I wanted to ask questions. I have 50 questions. I asked 5 of them, considering there's only so many I can ask. So Chet does a lot of interrogations. Yeah. So he was trying to pin him on a few things as well. Ran had great questions and brought questions from BitBoy as well. So I think, all of us have more questions. I have more questions I'm annoyed I couldn't ask as well. So it's something that, it's a point that we can all make.
But guys, I think to Coffee's point, we got him to admit that the money was double accounted for in Alameda and on FTX. He literally admitted it when I asked him the question. I said to him, is it possible that people were depositing money into Alameda, no money was flowing between FTX and Alameda, and people were trading as if they had money, and therefore you were double accounting on the money? And he pretty much said, yeah, that could have happened. That is probably what happened. I mean, beyond that point, he admitted that Alameda was taking money and they were crediting people on FTX. And then Alameda was still using the money. So they pretty much were creating fake money on FTX. He admitted it. Go back. I've got this thing on YouTube. I'm going to cut out that.
Rand kept taking it back to that key point. And we did get to the key point, which is that the spot and futures were commingled. And the bit that Jesse was trying to, that we found out afterwards, is that these margin positions, are you simply lending your Bitcoin to somebody, and somebody, these are matched up on an order book peer to peer. So we got the key thing out, which is that it was all commingled. It was a mess. And there was no
There's Spot, and he said that Spot, I made him agree to two things. One is that Alameda and FTX were commingled, and not only that they were duplicating funds. So you would put your money into Alameda, and you would get $1 would be deposited into Alameda, and that dollar would reflect as a $1 balance on your account, but the money wouldn't flow from Alameda into FTX, which means that every time money came in, you were basically funding Sam Bankman-Fried's hedge fund while he was crediting you with fake money on the exchange. He admitted to that. The second thing that he admitted was that there was no separation between spot clients and futures clients, which means that effectively there was commingling of funds, and that is a fraud. That's a fraud in any country. That's a fraud in Bahamas. It's a fraud in the USA. It's a fraud anywhere in the world. That's the second thing that's the second thing that he admitted. So I think we pretty much got out of him 80% of what went wrong here. 80% of what went wrong here, we've pretty much got, and he admitted.
I wanted to dig more into the fiat Silvergate, whether it was issuing stable coins, because I didn't fully get all of that. Did you get it all?
No, yeah, I think, yeah.
Because he was talking about how Made was just a gateway for fiat, but then how does that relate to all the
Ran, just quickly, Ran, your co-host, I have a glitch. Can you check the speaker's request and bring up Hussein? He's the person
I have invited Hussein, and what it says on my side is it's asking me if I want to cancel the invite. I can try again.
Okay, yeah. So there's Nick Pett, and then I'll send you the two handles. So they're the two people that were investigating FTX and Alameda for about 9 months, and the findings they have, which they shared with us, pretty insane. So I've been. I'm
gonna try and bring them up. I'm gonna just send you a screenshot because I actually have.
I've sent you both their handles, and see if they have their hand up as well. They have their hand up as well.
Mario.
I'm gonna cancel current invite. I'm gonna resend the invite. I think that's the easiest way.
Yeah, try that. And guys, so Hussein and Nick, check your DMs, guys. That's how, when Rand sends you the invite, that's how you get it. Yeah, Alex and Chairman, go ahead. Alex and Umbrella.
Let's not beat ourselves up too much, man. To get SBF on a Twitter Space to take that many questions, that's pretty incredible achievement. To be fair,
I think we should beat ourselves up because that was really a wasted opportunity.
Nothing. Simon, I'm sorry, but I don't agree.
I think if you go back to the transcript, Chairman and Kim, if you go back to the transcript and you see some of the things that Sam said, and then again compared to the transcript of the other two interviews. Yeah, go ahead, bro.
There's a couple key things.
No offense to Chet, but there are people he spoke 90% of the time, and there are people who are much more qualified on a lot of these topics than Chet is. And you told us we'd all be able to ask 2 questions at the end after you finished your line of questioning.
So first of all, Chairman, I just want to cut in there because I will, obviously, I'm going to protect my own reputation at any point in time. So don't come at me like that, Chairman. First of all. Second of all, what I was going after and what Mario prevented from happening was a massive series of questions that were going to be ran through pretty quickly in order to get to the root of the matter. This is how you actually do investigations, to actually find out what happened. You don't let the person just keep filibustering, keep just flowing, keep putting. He has about the same 4 responses. Hold on.
Are you saying your employer fucked up, Chet? Is that what you're saying?
Kim, can you please not right now? So at this point, here's the thing, right? There was an idea of how to actually build this. There was an idea of which questions to actually ask, and some of the questions never got asked. Was the fact that he even said that his parents worked at Alameda. They were both compliance officers, so how did they not catch anything like that? That question was never able to get asked. There's a whole bunch of questions that people don't understand that were actually coming into the fruition, never got a chance to because Mario decided to change up the entire way that the space was going. I'm not happy at all with it, and I'm not pleased.
All right, guys, so I'm trying to bring up Hussein. So how'd it go, Rand? Did it work? Because they're in the audience.
I have invited, I've got, there's an invite pending for Nick Peterson. And I'm trying to bring in Hussein, but it doesn't find him. I'm trying to add him on, but it's not finding him.
See if you can find him in the audience. Go through the audience, and then
I'm on it.
Yeah, Mario, can I just
go ahead, Alex.
A quick thought on
bro.
Look, I understand it's a highly emotional situation for everyone involved, right? And I think that has kind of spilled over. I think in terms of tangible advice, if one of these spaces is done again, whether Mario by you or anyone in the crowd, I think I'd have 3 pointed pieces of feedback. The first is you need people with certain domain expertise on the stage. So we really should have someone like a Jesse or someone who has deep technical knowledge of how exchanges work on the stage. so that they can drill deeper when Sam basically tries to like feint off of a question. The second is there also needs to be someone technical on here. Like Sam has a degree in physics and a minor in math from MIT. So he can literally use esoteric technical language to throw people off if there isn't someone on the stage that has technical depth, at least as deep as him. And I'm technical, but I'm nowhere near as technical as Sam. I'll be the first to admit that. So that's the first thing, is get speakers with domain knowledge on here, specifically around exchanges and deep technical knowledge. The second thing would be, I get the point Chet was saying, which is I think we have a lot of people on stage. And frankly, that's why I didn't talk till the very end, because I think it could really quickly go south and Sam can take advantage of us all interrupting with each other, because it basically makes us look incompetent. And even right now, like, we're starting to turn on each other, which again further helps bolster his case. And then I think just the last thing to keep in mind is, again, we have to understand that Sam is doing this all for a reason. He is not a good person. He is a bad person who very, very likely committed fraud. And I have to say likely because it's an ongoing legal case, right? And he's going to do anything he can to sway public perception. It's very unlikely that he's going to slip up. So I think part of the job here is to, like other people were saying, do not greet him with pleasantries. Do not be like, oh, you're a good person. We literally have to hit him hard, because ultimately it's about shifting social sentiment in these spaces more than anything.
But I think if you want to I think you'll attract more. You'll attract more bees using honey. And the idea is, if you come in and attack him, he's not going to open up. And the idea is that if you encourage him, then he will open up, and he could start asking, some really cool questions. I think the one mistake that we made was that we went out on the attack, and we shouldn't have gone out on the attack. We should have gone out to have a conversation with him, and then when he was feeling more comfortable and less defensive, then we should have perhaps asked him some tough questions.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to bring you Hussein and Nick. I've added you to the group with them, please, Ryan. I know you're trying to bring them up.
Yeah, I'm
so guys,
speaking to them on Twitter.
Nick,
try to leave.
Exit the space.
And then join back with a new invite that I sent you.
Okay, so exit, guys. Nick and Hussein, exit, and then join back, because there's no invite that makes me speaker. I mean, you're in the group on WhatsApp, by the way, Ryan.
Yeah.
Because I'm really, so this is, for anyone listening, all reporters and stuff, I think this segment is going to be probably more important to you than the interview with Sam, because you've got, everything that they're going to say. They've got facts that they've collated over 8,
I've invited Hussein.
Why didn't you
guys,
have
just 2 seconds.
When,
2 seconds. Guys, 2 seconds. Sorry, go ahead, Chairman. And while Ryan, you're trying to bring them up. Go ahead, Chairman.
Why didn't you have these people on when
so they wanted to come on afterwards, so that's a different discussion. We've talked about it in depth on what would be best, and we best for them to come up afterwards and share the evidence. Otherwise, it wouldn't, we wouldn't even have an interview. Did you get it, guys?
Yeah, I've sent it to Nick. The one to Hussein, on my thing, it says failed to send. It says you can no longer send direct messages to this person.
Yeah, Hussein, you got to leave the space and try to come back in. You got to come up, guys. I'm not going to give up till you come up. If Rand can't bring you up, I'll use my other phone. I'll log in with 2 phones. Hopefully
I'm trying to.
So Hussein, just for the audience, while Rand's bringing up Hussein and Nick, I won't speak on their behalf and all the information. We had a 2-hour chat just today. And to give you guys an idea, that they came on stage a couple of times. From, I'm trying to paraphrase what happened. They had a project that was listed on an exchange, liquid exchange. Anyone that was in the space should probably remember the story. They got, there was a lot of unethical things done by Alameda that almost destroyed their business. And since then they started, it really killed them back then. They launched an investigation that was early, I think it was early this year or end of last year that it happened, when nobody really even looked at FTX. And they launched an investigation. They got a lot of chain analysis guys there. And a pretty big team, and I'm just checking the group to see if they're coming up. So
just Nick, Nick's being added as a listener. Nick, just press the button and just wait 2 seconds, and then you'll see if you just wait 2 seconds, there will be a button that says speaker. Just give it 2 seconds. It's glitchy. It takes a while to load.
I'm just messaging them now. Crypto man ran. So they, since then, they launched the investigation, and they found things. A lot of them will be pretty crazy allegations for the audience listening, and they'll be pretty clear. They'll tell you the allegations that they can prove, and they've got evidence to prove 100%. And then they'll share the allegations that is more speculative, and they cannot prove, but they're looking into it. So some of it will sound crazy, and I think they'll be open if you DM them. All reporters, you can DM them and ask for the evidence to back up some claims. I know you have to be able to write about it, and they'll be able to share a lot of it. And obviously the speculative ones, you take it as is, as pure speculation, but based on a lot of research. How'd you go, Ryan?
I've sent it, but both of them should have the invite. Both of them should have the invite. They should be ready to join. I did actually ask him that question. He said that it could have been Alameda.
Who did you ask what question?
I did ask Sam if they could have been creating fake tokens, and he said that could have been Alameda.
The synthetic tokens.
Go
ahead, Kyle.
The whole inflating token supply. This is something that has come out in the past where, let's say that someone deposits, I don't know, let's say 1 million Dogecoin, and that's all that's on an exchange. An exchange, because they're centralized, they can just say that they have 2 million. And this is highly likely what probably happened in this particular case of what you're talking about.
Yeah. I'll be joining the space from my other phone. Let's see how that goes.
I'm trying to.
That's a risk, but I have no choice.
Yeah, I was trying to lead up to naked shorting, but I didn't get there. It's just
you
cooked, son.
James.
Are they up, or should I have joined from my other phone?
I have invited them both. It says it's not bringing one in speaker.
Okay, let me chat. I'll send you the username as well, chat, so you can try to invite them. In the meantime, I'll go in from my other phone to try to bring them up. So let me send the username.
Hey, while you're bringing up some people, one of the things that's going to come up was this whole separation between FTX US and FTX International. This is going to create an absolute shit show between creditors. This happened in the Celsius case, where the lawyers used the division between some people, like regulators were sending cease and desist orders to Celsius, and then they bodged together a fake custody service where they never segregated funds. And it created this big divide where there was a bit of funds in custody, what was called custody, and the rest in earn. And then the lawyers used that in order to determine, or they're using it now, that all the funds belong to Celsius, and therefore they could spend them and use them as much as they want. And this is the shit show that's going to happen between the US and international. Or the US are going to create an ad hoc group and try and get 100% recovery based upon what Sam's saying. The lawyers are going to use that in order to create division between the international creditors and the US creditors and the Japan creditors. And they're going to use every ounce of that to wage war against creditor to creditor to creditor in order to win prisoner's dilemma and get things exactly what they want. It's a very manipulative technique.
Simon, I want to ask you another question. Do you remember how we did a space once? We had a few people from Celsius, and there was a lot of Celsius were some of the first whistleblowers on Alameda's actions. And there were allegations about Alameda. I'll let you tell us what was that space about, and what was the connection between Alameda and Celsius. And we do have speakers that will come up and talk about it a bit later. If you can summarize it for the audience, because it was a really eye-opening space.
It was just more the Celsius community were the first to really call out Sam Bankman-Fried, because they detected naked short selling, because they knew that all the sell tokens were locked up on the app, and so there was only so much circulating supply. And then they tried to create a short squeeze. The bit they got wrong is that it didn't need to be covered by sell tokens, so everyone got wrecked. But what was important is that they really highlighted to everybody that SBF is a really bad actor. And so we started really asking questions, and I got a reply to him. But it was because of that community that I was one step ahead of this, and their work that was done that. So they really were shouting as loud as possible while everyone was saying FTX is the hero and was bidding on this, and everyone was trying to get them to bid on the companies and save them and stuff. So they detected it, and it was because so many of the sell tokens were locked up on the app. It was a bit easier to detect strange behavior.
I've got good news. I logged in from my other phone, so I'll be inviting them myself. So guys, check from my DMs.
So guys, sorry, I can't hear anyone. I'm not sure if you guys can hear me.
Oh shit, you're on. Yeah.
Excellent.
Fuck yeah. All right, perfect, man. I can hear you, bro.
Hey, on that last point,
and I'll try to invite Nick. Go ahead, Hussein. So just Hussein, I want to do an introduction, bro. What did you go through? What kicked off that investigation? and let's kick it off with some of the things you've been telling me over the last few days and weeks.
So obviously, I don't know who's heard us before, but we went through a situation where Alameda actually basically created counterfeit synthetic coins and traded it to dump our price. They basically dumped our market. John himself from Alameda was meant to be helping us, obviously, as a partner. We went into an agreement with them. Alameda sold themselves as obviously the partner to New Genesis to try to help New Genesis grow. On the launch date, they did everything they could to actually dump the coin. We found the coin being sold for 1 to 2 cents. There was literally about 76,000 coins sold initially. We basically told Alameda we don't want them to do market making anymore and to retract. They agreed. All of a sudden, coins were still on the market, being sold at 1 to 2 cents. We utilized something called Navis, which is New Genesis Artificial Validations Intelligence System. It's very different to look. Our systems were developed for meta processing, so it's a little bit different than your traditional technology. So what happens is the AI actually witnessed very certain things that they did and reported it to us. One of them is creating their own synthetic versions of our coin. The second was trading. There was trade on the network when there was no coins that should have been on the network. Basically very similar to what they were saying about Cell. I'll go into more detail as we go along, but I think if we stick to the factors right now, I mean, you guys actually got Sam to admit a few things that nobody realized how important it is. I know it didn't go as the way most people wanted, and Sam's pretty bright and understood how to play this. But he actually did admit that they did have counterfeit coins on their system. I mean, based on the technology anyway, and they were actually selling counterfeit coins. So you actually did bring out some certain things. I mean, once Nick is on board, and what I was trying to say just earlier is Cell wasn't the first. There was a lawsuit in 2017 and a lawsuit in 2019. So there was actually, this is not a problem that actually came out today. This is a problem that actually came out in 2017, and it was actually brought to everyone's attention that that's what they were doing. And then again in 2019, then again with us in 2022.
So yeah, I think what we should do is maybe just I just want to recap what you're saying, because I think a lot of people, you spoke really quickly and I think a lot of people don't really understand what happened. But you launched a project, and part of the project, part of the project that you launched, you used Alameda for some kind of market making services, right?
Yeah. So when we go onto an exchange, the exchange tell you, so Liquid says we can't get listed unless we have a market maker. So Liquid is another asset that's owned by Sam. So they actually introduced us to Alameda Research. Now, Alameda Research became our partner, which is the market maker, which in terms of the agreement we had with them were to sustain a value of the coin until the market picks up. So they're meant to be supporting the project until so they're not meant to dump liquidity. They're meant to hold liquidity. And then there's enough buyers, release liquidity so the market is stable. So that was their position.
And what they did was they dumped all your tokens. You realized that they were dumping all your tokens.
They put 200 million. Stop. They put 200 million new coin on Liquid.
And then you said to them, okay, guys, stop. We don't want you to be the market makers anymore. Stop immediately, and please give us back the tokens. And they gave you back the tokens.
It was a little bit harder than that. We told them, please, you're destroying us. You're ruining our company. You're ruining our reputation. Please, we begged them to stop. So if you look at the video that's out there, it wasn't actually saying it. You read the messages. We were begging Alameda to stop. We should just stop it. We don't care. We don't care what happened. We don't care if it's a tech issue. Just please stop it. Right now, you're destroying us. And they just continued, and they just continued, and they just continued.
And I think more importantly here, when they gave you back, once you eventually managed or asked the tokens back, they were in a position where they couldn't provide the tokens. And I think that gave you that's the point where you realize that what they were doing is they were actually creating fake synthetic tokens, and they were trading these fake synthetic tokens as if they were the real tokens. And effectively, they were just creating fake tokens and trading fake tokens on the exchange, right?
Correct. There's a little bit more complicated than that, because what happened is our AI witnessed them shifting over assets, which is the real tokens that were sitting down in real wallets, and shifting them out of the sub wallets that were created for customers and put them all into one wallet, which was their wallet. So they took custodianship, well, obviously that's of every single person's new coin, and put it into one single wallet. Now, we're not used to centralized exchanges at that point. So that our AI alerted us that a function was utilized that they had no permission to utilize. So that's where we first went to him and said, what do you guys have done? I mean, why are you guys pulling customers' assets? Why are you guys using the private keys of customers, even though you guys are the custodian? Why are you removing the subcategory, the sub wallets? And why are you creating one singular wallet to hold all assets of customers? Therefore, there is no longer a relationship between a single coin that a customer has and the representation in the wallet that the customer has. So they destroyed the representation in that wallet. That's the first time we realized that these guys are able to, or operating in a way to actually remove the liquidity from the liquidity pools, centralize those liquidity into a wallet that they only had access to, and therefore we could not determine what customers had what new coin and how much new coin really was on the centralized exchange.
Now, just to be clear, they didn't create a perp for your coin, right? They didn't create a perpetual for your coin.
No, that's other projects we're working on. That's not us. Yeah.
Okay, good. So effectively they were effectively trading in. They could create as many tokens as they wanted, and they could trade as many tokens as they wanted because no one was holding it into account.
Correct. The only way that anyone would have ever found out is when people start withdrawing. So when we asked our customers to start withdrawing assets from exchanges, and when we started withdrawing, so I was one of the first to initiate the withdrawal process out of Liquid. And because, okay, you got to understand there's two different parts of this technology. There's the decentralized nature of the blockchain, also the blockchain itself, and then there's a centralized nature. The blockchain will never accept counterfeit coins or synthetic coins. So when you try to withdraw funds, if you cannot withdraw funds out of a system, there's a couple of reasons why. One of the main reasons, or actually it is the main reason, it's not one of the main reasons, is the liquidity is not back to that wallet. So the centralized unit has a representation. It doesn't actually have your crypto, right? So you're creating a representation on a wallet. You aren't actually trading Bitcoin or Ethereum or anything on that centralized unit. So I can add any kind of data points to your wallet. I can give you 1 million Bitcoin. It doesn't really matter. The only time that anyone would ever be able to tell that that Bitcoin was fake or synthetic is when that's withdrawn back to the native chain. So the only time you'll ever be able to realize it.
We saw exactly the same thing that happened with Bitcoin. So when people were withdrawing their Bitcoin off Alameda, which was reflected in their accounts as a positive Bitcoin balance, what we then saw was that we saw on chain, we saw that Alameda actually had, or FTX had no more Bitcoin. And
correct.
There were
exactly correct.
Exactly. So they did it. So I think what we did is we got Sam to admit on this call that they were doing that, because I asked him a very direct question.
100%.
I said, could it?
Yeah, and that's the key thing, because even if it's margin or spot, you know, if you're lending your Bitcoin or you got your Bitcoin there, and it's still the same thing.
Oh, no. In this conversation, there's two key things you guys got out of him that forget about the rest of the questions, right? Because they're really irrelevant to a crime. They're just governance of how they operate the systems, right? Governance you can play with. You can argue anything for or against a governance system. What you can't argue is simple facts of how they actually the technology worked and how much knowledge the person had of that technology. Now, even though he was playing stupid, he actually showed and demonstrated he actually understood every part of the technology, including from leveraging to how the system operates. So you actually, even though he thought he was outsmarting everyone on this channel, if you sit back now and take bits and pieces of what he said, you'll understand he actually admitted to creating the fraud. And he actually admitted even in the terms of agreements, which I believe he was incorrect anyway. So under the terms of agreements, they have something called a custodianship, right? Now, they don't call it custodianship. They call it title to your digital assets shall at all times remain with you and shall not transfer to FTX trading. Now, this is a very crucial thing, because this is saying that I'm holding your crypto, not I'm holding FTT. I'm holding your current crypto in custodianship. It is your crypto. It is not ours. We're not going to use it. We're not going to move it. We're not going to give anybody else access to it. So under their own terms of agreements, that they've made it very clear. Now, what he's trying to spin the story is utilizing another part of his terms and agreements, which then talks about when a third party can initiate or utilize that service. And that's what I assume he's trying to use, which loop I was trying to use. Now, the only thing is the third party agreement then requires the person who owns the wallet or the crypto to approve it. Now, there's never been a situation that I'm aware of that someone told him that, you know what, go ahead, use my crypto, trade it, take it, bank it, cash it out, utilize it.
Yeah, no, what I think he's saying though is that when you engage in the margin order book, you can have your Bitcoin in custody, but when you engage in that, you're agreeing to lend it and you're engaging in that transaction. But
definitely
that
on his
doesn't change the backing. That doesn't change the backing equation.
Correct. So one Bitcoin will always be one Bitcoin in the system, and one Ethereum should always, since it's a custodianship relationship, it's not that you give me Ethereum and I'm going to swap it to FTT, right? I'm holding in custody the exact asset or the asset that you gave me. So if I've got one Bitcoin, it doesn't matter if the market crashes. If you're withdrawing your single Bitcoin. It doesn't matter if the Bitcoin's worth 16,000 or 100,000. It makes no difference.
Exactly. The trader's making the loss. It's not the exchange.
Correct.
So if somebody gets wrecked, they get wrecked because they made the wrong directional move. And if they
100%.
did it on leverage, then fine. But it doesn't lead to any loss in the exchange.
Yeah.
The
there
loss
was one
in the
thing.
exchange is
There
is what Rand was trying to say. When it stops like miles away from you, because you had FTT, there wasn't enough liquidity, and the margin fails. But he wasn't saying that's what happened. He was obfuscating the relationship between the margin and lending your Bitcoin, which should still be backed.
I mean, there's two sides to it. There's two sides. And there was one side where I actually agreed with him, which is probably contrary to what the public opinion is. But there is a massive loss that the exchange would have taken because the market corrected so quickly. I don't think there's any risk management system in the world that would have tolerated such a big drop without taking some kind of loss.
Only if they had directional risk.
Yes. No. If I had FTT tokens as collateral and I borrowed against the FTT tokens as collateral, and within 10 seconds the collateral halved, then they couldn't sell my collateral to cover the other position.
Yeah. So that's the argument. That's the argument that didn't agree. Sorry, guys. That's the argument that they actually had the right to start with, to take the asset and then turn it into or swap it to FTT. So you've got to go back to its core basics. Yes. Forget about the governance. Forget about governance. Forget about how they operate. Forget about trying to turn into a bank run. This isn't a bank. Forget the idea altogether. There's an idea of an asset being held in custody for a customer to trade. Right. This is why, and I know I sent earlier questions, but I made the questions very boring and very specific because Sam could not lie around them. He couldn't hide the answer, and it's all specific to terms and conditions and basically how the technology works, and the governance itself is irrelevant. So it doesn't matter if he's trying to argue the fact that, yes, FTT dropped. Who cares? Who gave you the right to take my Bitcoin and swap it for FTT?
And I think the whole thing of a bank run applies to fractional reserve when you have regulatory permission to rehypothecate money and to create money. So the concept of a bank run is not directional if your accounting system's all set up correctly.
Yeah, but I think you guys are missing one point. And again, I want to just try and make sure we all understand this point. So let's say that let's not say FTT. Let's say that I use Bitcoin as collateral and I borrow against my Bitcoin. So I give them a Bitcoin which is worth $10,000 or $15,000 today or $17,000 today, and they allow me to borrow against that Bitcoin 50% of the Bitcoin's value. So I'm allowed to borrow on margin $8,500. The problem is that if Bitcoin goes down below $8,500 in one tick, so if Bitcoin goes from 17,000 to 2,000, the risk management systems don't have an exit point. That's the problem. I think that the one point where I actually realized that there may be something here to what he's saying is that if the risk management systems on the leverage weren't good enough, they would have taken some kind of loss, a big loss, because the risk management systems are tolerant to a certain market move. But if the market moves much quicker than that, then the problem is that they can't adjust the leverage with the borrowed position.
Yeah, you miss the margin call and it goes under collateralized, and that creates a loss.
Exactly.